There in that corner.
Time to take your medicine.
Bring the meeting to order. Apologize, that was my granddaughter, it's her birthday. I'm Councilman Bach, I'm standing in for Mayor White. This is a special work session, so good morning to those of you who are here, those of you who are watching. It is a continuation of the discussion of Ordinance 26-1, commonly known as right-of-way. And as you may know, today's meeting reflects continuing council attention. Policy action taken in June has caused quite a bit of public reaction. All of us have received it. We in turn have been reflecting and reassessing and talking to one another about whether or not our policy response is the desired one. I want to give credit to Councilwoman Cartner, who is with us, and Councilman Martin, who is not. They had an exchange of notes, and then that blossomed into a further dialogue. And out of that came a concept memo with some notions about how to deal with gravel in the right-of-way. Those were sent to the administrative team for further refinement and addenda. And so the document that will be presented today is the result of discussion between and among council members. All council has seen it now at this point. Administration has reviewed it. Council also has a briefing memo, just for the benefit of the audience, from the manager, and I'll give you a very small précis of it. It basically outlines the proposed changes. They're largely with Section 4, which is a grandfather provision for gravel, and Section 10, which expands allowable ground level exceptions. And for those of you not familiar with the right-of-way, one of our favorite topics over the years, the right-of-way functions by creating exceptions to the rule. And so that's what we're struggling with here, or we have been struggling. Hopefully we won't struggle any further. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to the manager, Catherine Adams.
Thank you. We're happy to continue this dialogue and make revisions as council would like based on the feedback we have received. You have before you a clean red-lined copy of Section 26-1, and you will see in red, as outlined by Councilman Bach, the revisions to allow a grandfathering in of two parts. So for complete clarity, we wanted to make sure the ordinance reflected the parking area, gravel, and the grandfathering of that. And setting today, if you choose and pass this today, would be the time certain for moving forward in the gravel parking, as well as the new section number 10 that makes some clarifications around the other decorative type gravel in the right-of-ways. So there are two components. We took the concerns of the grandfathering versus moving forward. We just segmented it into two parts for clarity. The other request that we have heard is fees, and certainly fees are waivable, and we have included that in number 11 in 26-1 that reflects no charging of fees for any of the items permitted, whether gravel, decorative gravel, or the parking pad gravel. And a couple other minor tweaks to adjust that today's date would be it, and that clarity that an encroachment agreement would no longer be necessary.
Manager, if you will, this is probably redundant and going backwards a little bit, but because we have so many people in attendance and hopefully folks watching, will you please describe the right-of-way, who the right-of-way belongs to, how big the right-of-way is, just for the record and so that everybody who wants to hear it can hear it.
Sure. So the right-of-way is immediately off of the street, the paved street, it is owned by the town. It is not private property. However, because we don't have a curb and gutter type system, we understand how confusing that can be as to where the town property is versus private property. None of this is talking about private property. This is all about the town-owned property, that's the right-of-way. In general, it's, I hate to quote a number, but in most places, it's generally 20 feet from the pavement up into, coming up to the property owner's line. And Matt may have more distinctions. There are different right-of-way measurements for different roads, Oak Island Drive, for instance. But that's a pretty good general description of where the town property ends.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, because I'm continuing to hear folks say, this is my yard, this is in front of my house, this is my property, and I have to keep reminding them, no, it's really not your property. So want to make sure everybody understands that. And as it is not everybody's personal property, anybody, if you have gravel, anybody can park there. So it's not your dedicated parking space. It belongs to the town, and if I want to go park in front of somebody's house and meet the terms of the parking requirement links, then I can go park in front of somebody's house and they can't be upset about it. So I just want everybody to understand the limits of the right-of-way for the property owners.
Thank you, that's important, and you touched on the parking area, and just to make clear, we did not change the requirements for what is considered the paid parking area versus non-paid parking areas. That has not changed.
Along those lines, 20 feet from the pavement is right-of-way. But what we're talking about today is 10 feet wide of gravel into the right-of-way, not 20 feet wide.
So
10 by 20 means 20 foot long and
Parallel.
10 feet into the yard.
correct.
Okay. And to clarify one other thing, anyone can park in the right-of-way, but not south of Oak Island Drive, because there is no right-of-way parking in the paid parking areas.
It's consistent with the paid parking zone. That in here is identified in 26A for the police enforcement zones.
That was my next question. What is the definition of police enforcement zone? Does that mean the paid parking areas?
Yes.
Okay.
So point of clarification on that, if I may, please. So that 10 feet, that is going forward. We're looking in the windshield on that. That is what the new ordinance is saying. We're not saying that anybody who's grandfathered is limited to 10 feet, correct?
That's correct.
Correct. If you have more than that, it's.
That's right. So the ordinance then, looking at the grandfather provision, if you have gravel, and only gravel, or mulch, or a combination of gravel and mulch, regardless of the size, as long as it's in the right-of-way, whether it's on both sides of your driveway, one side, or a combination contiguous to the driveway, then you will be grandfathered in. Okay. Thank you.
Correct, it's written with today's date for your consideration.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No,
No,
no.
no.
You're out of order, sir. Would you kindly refrain, let council discussion proceed? Thank you. Bill.
So just as a, sort of lost my train of thought, just as a further clarification, we're talking about, this is dealing with gravel in the right-of-way, but there's also a portion of the ordinance that deals with what we would call hardscape in the ordinance. The point I want to make for the public is that folks are saying, why are you just now dealing with this? Why are you suddenly, who decided to enforce this? These ordinances have been on the books for the life of the town, basically. And it's unfortunate for this council and for this administration that previous administrations chose not to enforce our ordinances. But part of what this council is doing is working to start to enforce our ordinances, not only in right-of-ways, but in other areas like nuisance abatements and things like that. So This isn't something that this council and this administration decided to bully up on and say, we're going to start doing this. It's always been on the books. It's just not been enforced, unfortunately, by prior administration.
And along those lines, I agree. Hardscape is not being excluded or exempted. If somebody has a concrete figurine in the right-of-way, that is not permitted.
That is correct.
And
26A
the people that receive
for-
letters, some of the people that receive letters, some of their letters said were written to them because of their hardscape, not because of their gravel. And if it was written to them because of their hardscape, they are still in a situation they need to correct.
That is correct. And just to reiterate, that is the safety concerns for our police and fire vehicles to ensure that they have the ability to pull over in the right-of-way when they need to respond to an emergency.
I just didn't want us to leave this meeting and people think that they can throw that letter away. If the letter applied to gravel, maybe they can throw that letter away, but if it applied to hardscape, they need to read it again.
Correct. We did not change anything with that.
One other thing, if I could bring that up, so 26.1 for A4D talks about a large canopy tree is listed in chapter 32 shall be planted in the right-of-way adjacent to the lot, subject to approval of the town. That is extremely, has been confusing to me and still remains confusing. So the way I read that, it says that if you want to, going forward, if you want to put a parking pad in, you also have to put a tree in the right-of-way, in your right-of-way, or adjacent to the lot. So that's to me, is very inconsistent, right? So we have to, so people can't have a statue or landscape logs, but we're asking them to plant a tree, which would certainly be a potential problem with any emergency vehicle if there's a 40-foot oak tree in the right-of-way.
If I may, Bob, when Matt first presented this, you said a tree would be placed behind the gravel, but this language isn't saying that now. But like what Bob's saying,
Yeah,
if
let's
they
say-
if they put a
it's
tree
saying
like
in
in
the
the right of way,
right-of-way.
that's a hardscape.
And that's something I know we discussed 2 weeks ago, is that rather than in the right-of-way, if it was adjacent to the right-of-way, then I think that would eliminate any potential conflict.
Yeah, you could do that. You could also, if that was the wish of town council, you could also accredit ones that are, you know, probably in the front setback area as the portion of property. Our tree and vegetation ordinance does request that new construction that some be placed in that front setback area. If council chose to include a clause to credit those that are in that front setback areas, as opposed to the right of way, that'd be perfectly reasonable.
So we would have to adjust the wording this morning before we vote on a motion to move forward on this. We'd have to change that wording.
Councilman Gillo, you have a motion on the floor to adopt administrative recommendations. We can change that section. You can change it by amendment.
Yeah.
I do have an additional question, comment in number 4, letter K. Excuse me. Letter K. We talk about anything being treated as a legal nonconformity. We did have some discussion about that term in the June meeting, and I just want to make sure that our attorney agrees that legal nonconforming is the correct terminology to use applicable to this section.
Yes, that is the technical term for the grandfathering.
Okay.
Can add to that.
One last question from me. D.I. Should town improvement or utilities preclude planting of a large canopy tree, a fee in lieu of planting in the amount of $250 shall be paid to the town? How did we arrive at the figure 250 instead of 100 or 150?
250 is the cost to the town to purchase and plant
Okay. But if the individual homeowner were to purchase one and purchase one for $100, they would pay $250? Well, they wouldn't pay $250. They would just pay the $250 and not buy a tree. Okay. Are you good?
So,
I can make them.
So, the chair would like to entertain any and all questions before we call for motions on the floor. I do want to comment on
Do we have a motion?
the history of the right-of-way, which, thank you, Matt, for providing. It is long and checkered. Whether that's the function of the absence of political will, or manpower, or competing priorities, we could have an argument. The question here is, in my mind, can we move beyond this fixation on gravel and get to the larger, more compelling issues, from my point of view, which is safety, as the manager mentioned. That's an absolute priority for any government. Access to public property, which is constrained by people hijacking our street ends and putting up impediments, that has to stop. Public access means just that, public access. And then I think we all have a generalized concern for the aesthetic of our, what people call our streetscape. Junk, trash, sofas, cars, to the extent that we have the legal authority to compel cleaning that up, I believe we should. So the longer we talk about gravel, the further we are away from the things that really matter to the quality of life, from my point of view. That's why I'm excited about today. I think we have a resolution that we can move forward on. There is a lot of other right-of-way work to be done. And I want to thank my colleagues for continuing to educate the public, right? And I would suggest, you know, if you have a question, if you still have it, get out your survey. It's very clearly marked. You just ignored it, as I did, right? And make sure you're minimally 20 feet back from the center line of the road. It's not hard. All those stakes that you see from surveyors, that's what that's about. If you're in doubt and you get a survey, your survey is probably on file. So, thank you. Last call for questions.
I'm good.
Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I can make a motion. Is this your motion, Lisa? Lisa has written it out, and I will read it verbatim. Motion to adopt the amendment to Section 26-1 of the town's Code of Ordinances as presented, with the exception of 4D. The language should be amended to say behind the right-of-way, gravel, behind the gravel in the right-of-way. I think that covers what you were addressing, Bob.
I'll second that to put it on the floor. Yeah, now my question is, does that satisfy you?
Yeah,
Councilman
but
Sherman?
the language that I wrote said, large canopy tree is listed in Chapter 32 of the Code of Ordinances, shall be planted in the lot adjacent to the right-of-way, subject to approval of the town. In lieu of a new large canopy tree, property owner shall receive appropriate credits for existing tree DBH, which meet existing town ordinance.
Yeah, if you would want to credit that in the front setback area there to further clarify that, I think that would be appropriate. That's what we do in new builds.
Okay. I'm just, so it gives us consistency, right? Whether it's a new home or existing home. An existing home that has 52 inches of DBH on their lot, I mean, to expect they're going to put a tree in just because they're putting a parking pad. Okay.
Councilman Shula, you comfortable?
I am.
Then the motion needs to be amended to reflect that language, and I'm amicable to that.
Bob, would you like to offer
If you
the
can,
amendment?
if you could say it
Yeah,
one
I
more
know.
time.
So a large canopy tree is listed in Chapter 32 of the Code of Ordinances shall be planted on the lot adjacent to the right-of-way, subject to approval of the town. In lieu of a new large canopy tree, property owners shall receive appropriate credits for existing tree DBH which meet existing town ordinance for setbacks?
So, let me, if you don't mind,
Please.
just a sec. Let's see.
So the first part is exactly what it says right now.
I think instead of saying shall be planted, or you would say shall be planted on the lot in the front setback area.
Okay,
That would clarify.
okay, okay.
And in essence, that language does not further punish someone that already has an abundance of trees and making them do overkill by putting one more tree there.
And if it's a big deal, the tree ordinance requires trees to be planted in that front setback area anyway.
Makes sense.
Could you give that to the clerk? Yes.
Yeah,
Please pass it around, I'll give it back.
okay, okay.
I don't know, hopefully you can read it. Oh, you went to med school.
One other point that I would like to make in this meeting, and I'll count on our town staff to communicate this widely to the public, is that if this amendment is passed today, from this day forward, to put gravel in your right-of-way, to do any of those kinds of things that are described in this ordinance, you must get approval from the town. There will not be a fee to do it, but you must get approval. So we're grandfathering folks in up to today's date. But from this date forward, you must follow and comply with the letter of the ordinance. So don't think that we're telling everybody you can just go put gravel now in front of your house without asking anybody about it. Because the town does have specifications for the gravel. There's a reason for that because of the composition of gravel and how it compacts or how it doesn't compact. And so just be clear that this ordinance is not giving everybody a free pass from into perpetuity. It's today's date, and from here on out, do the right thing, abide by the ordinance, get the right paperwork and approvals.
Okay, Madam Clerk, help me out here. So the amendment, do you have a copy of it yet?
I do have a copy of it, and
Is it-
Councilmember Kraft amended his motion to include that language, but you do not have a second.
Okay,
I'll second the amended motion.
okay. So we're ready for a vote? Roll call vote, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Carter,
Yes.
Councilmember Chula.
Yes,
Councilmember Kraft,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Bach.
Yes. Well,
Bravo.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
before we do that, if I
Oh.
could. So just to reiterate what we've already talked about. So anything that would impede an emergency vehicle, so for anybody who has landscape logs, statues, anything that is of substance, count down, mark it, my foot's about a foot long, mark off 20 feet. Rule of thumb, it's not exact, but if you have something like that, just be prepared to potentially move it. Otherwise, you will be getting a letter at some point. So forearmed is better than whatever the other rest of that word is, the rest of that sentence is, forewarned. Forewarned is better than forearmed, so just, be proactive.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
One more question.
We're not going to make speeches here.
Motion to adjourn.
All right,
So,
thank you.
second.
All in favor?
Let's go home.
Have a nice day.